Hey guys, it's Multiplier, but with Plugin Boutique looking at Sub Destroyer from JST. And in this video, I'm going to show you, first of all, how we can quickly and efficiently set up a very precise falling sub sound or a sub boom using Sub Destroyer. And then I'll show you how it might sound in the context of a track. So let's dive in and take a look. The cool thing about Sub Destroyer is how quickly and easily you can set up exactly what sort of falling sub sound you want. So it is literally as simple as choosing your start frequency, which you can either do by moving the start frequency around until you get to the note you want. Let's say we want to start on the second E up, which will be E1 around 82 Hertz. We'll set the start frequency. We'll set the end frequency. So let's set it as super low E, which would be E-1 if it's 21 Hertz. And then we hit fire, and it triggers a falling sub sound from that start frequency to that end frequency. And we can dial in a few other parameters as well. So we can set the length with this length control. So we can maybe make it a bit longer, about 2 seconds or so. And then you have a few controls such as setting the overall output level. Maybe we want to pull that back 2 dB or so. And we can choose the different types of waveform we want to work with. So if we want a falling triangle sound, we can do that. Maybe if we have a triangle wave, we want to do some low pass filtering. So we can use this low pass control to filter out some of those highs. So it's got the weight, but none of that high frequency action in there. It's nice and quick and simple to use, but there is another way we can use it. Notice we've been triggering it using this trigger tab where we simply hit fire, and that lets off a sub boom, but we can actually do it in another way if we want more fine control over how this falling frequency actually falls away. So if we go to automate, what we can do is automate the process. So it's a little bit different to the way plugins normally work. You don't trigger it with a MIDI note, instead you trigger it with automation. So to do that, what we need to do first of all is trigger it in the timeline. So we'll tap hold, and that loads up the correct automation control in the automation lane here. And then we'll draw in some automation, say over 2 bars. Let's just draw in like that. So now you can see the automation is triggering the sub sound. But we need to then automate the frequency and automate it in the way that we want. So what we could do is click the frequency control. So it brings it up in the automation lane we want. We'll then draw in the frequency automation we desire. So let's say from around 100 Hertz or so down to 20. We can draw that in 2 bars long. But this is the cool bit. We can change the slope of the frequency now because we're automating it manually. So we can maybe draw in a more exponential shape. Pretty cool, right? So we can change the shape of the way the frequency falls off, maybe slightly more exponential. And we can actually warm up or thicken up this sound if we want to. And we can do that with the output tab. So we go to the output tab and we can add in some drive, or it's just another word for distortion. You may hear people talking about saturation or distortion or warmth or coloring. It's all the same thing. And that's what we do with this drive section here. So we'll enable it and we'll turn up the amount. I happen to know maybe 25% or so is a nice place to start. And this will warm up the sound. So notice before in fact, what we'll do is put that frequency automation in its own automation lane so we don't get lost. So we'll do that like so. So notice in the spectrum analyzer below, it's a simple sine wave falling away all by itself. But if we want to thicken it up, what we want to do is add some extra harmonics related to that sine wave frequency. And that's what driving does, or adding distortion or saturation. So when we enable it, in fact, if we don't have the sine wave falling away, if I just trigger a note, we can see this single sine wave frequency, but then when we turn on the drive, notice now we have some extra harmonics. In fact, if I change the range here, you'll see a few more of them. So we have these extra harmonics. So you can see there's a harmonic there relating to this fundamental. There's a harmonic there, a harmonic there, and a harmonic there, and so on. And by changing the character, this changes the balance of harmonics. So you can see it brings in essentially more of the odd harmonics. By default, if the character is all the way on the left-hand side, we just see the even harmonics. So we have that is the first even harmonic, whereas we pull up the character and now add in some more harmonics, essentially the odd harmonics between the even ones, which is pretty cool. It allows us to thicken up the sound in a nice musically pleasing way. And when we add in these extra harmonics, it can sometimes be a good idea to filter out some of those higher harmonics, those higher frequencies, so we can go back to this low pass filter and filter out some of those highs. So now we have all those harmonics in the low end still. In fact, if I change the range, you'll see it a bit more clearly. So we still have those harmonics in the lower end of things. So the low end feels nice and thick and heavy, but we don't hear too much of that high frequency stuff. And there you go. That's how quick and easy it is to make a thick, heavy, and precise sub boom. Let's see this in the context of a track. To see this in action, I have one of my unreleased tracks I've been working on as an example here. And what I thought would be cool is to add one of these falling sub booms or falling sub frequencies at the start of bar 17. So it's in the middle of the intro and the build section. So if I play, say, 4 bars before bar 17, you'll see why it'd be a nice place to hear one of these sub booms. And then I'll show you how I would set it up. So you can see how a nice big sub boom would fit in perfectly there. In fact, we could maybe add the same one, maybe at bar 25 too. So what we want to do is, in fact, I'm going to use that automate technique that I showed you previously. So we will, yes, we're in the automate tab. We've just loaded up Sub Destroyer on this channel here. We will hit hold so we can automate the firing of it. So we've clicked that. We'll draw in, I think we want a 4 bar long sub boom, and then we'll put that in its own automation lane. In fact, I've drawn in 5 bars. Let's change that to 4 bars. And then we will click frequency so we can automate the frequency, and then we'll move it around until we have a start frequency we want. I think, say 82 hertz or so, which will be E. Yeah, it'll be E. Let's move that to there. Cool, so we've got our start frequency, then we'll draw in our end frequency, which will be right down low, and we'll do an exponential shape here. So we'll see what that sounds like, and then we'll add in a bit of distortion. In fact, let's solo it. Good stuff. And let's add a bit of distortion to thicken it up, make it a bit heavier. So we'll go to output, we'll enable the drive, turn it up to say around 25% or so, and turn up the character, and that will give it some weight. And just like before, we'll filter out some of those high frequencies by pulling on this low pass filter down to maybe 100 hertz or so. Let's see what it sounds like. It should be heavier now. In fact, let's also automate the output volume so it tails away a bit at the end. So we'll click output. We will automate that a little bit. Cool stuff. So we're just turning down the volume slowly over time with this automation. Great stuff, and I think that should sound great. Let's also copy that bit of automation across to the start of bar 25. So we also have another boom happening at the start of bar 25, and let's give it a listen. It should sound good in the track. We might have to adjust the track level because we haven't done that yet, but we'll see how it sounds. I think it'll sound good. And there you go, that's Sub Destroyer from JST. I've been Multiplier. Hope you enjoyed.